name is Twyla Whittingham, and I represent the Royal Academy of Alternative Lifestyles. I'm happy to be here tonight to answer some questions for your little sex club. I think it's lovely that we're all together tonight in this cozy room, and no doubt many of you will be in even more intimate quarters before the night's out.
Sexology!
What?
This is a sexology club.
Oh. Does that mean that you like study sex, but you don't actually do it? Well, let's have a go at the questions. And we don't need a pencil on the floor. All right. The first question. Is sex a good thing? Well, good for whom? The seducer? The seduced? Society at large? Or the census taker who comes to knock you up and ask you all those personal questions? Oh, I can't possibly answer this. Oh, not in public. Oh my goodness, who wrote this? I thought it was you. See me later. Oh, very tiny writing. I was recently in the loo of a new and very posh restaurant when the automatic flush went off, erupting in a great gushing geyser all over my privates. This went on for some 5 minutes. My dear, there are many who would envy your predicament. What do you think could have caused such a catastrophe? Well, you said it was new, so perhaps it was fitted out with a timer and your minutes were up. Someone may have been waiting. Or being young like many of you, it could have had a premature ejaculation. Boring. How do you feel about extramarital affairs? Well, I feel very good when I'm having one. Of course, you must be prudent and not indulge to the exclusion of other important cultural affairs. It's very dangerous and very naughty, and therefore great sport. It's even better if you have two lovers in the same historical time period. Is there a nicer word for fucking? Well, yes, there is. It's called intercourse, and it signifies the sexual union between a man and a woman, usually. How many of you already knew that? Oh, I am astonished at the number of people who never heard the word. So let's learn it together. I'll say it, and then you can repeat after me. Intercourse.
Intercourse.
Very good. Now you know the correct term to use in the confessional. How am I supposed to read this handwriting? Don't they teach penmanship in the schools anymore? And this is the last question. What is your position on marital fidelity? Well, I think marital fidelity is a great bore, and therefore I don't have a favorite position. Would you like to eat beans on toast every day, or read the same newspaper every evening? You know, I think young people are making a grave mistake marrying for love of all things. They've got it wrong way round. Wedlock should be reserved for establishing a more or less permanent address and developing the fine art of argument. Love, on the other hand, thrives best when served as a tasty side dish. Without all the bother and frustration and grief about disease, decline, and death. One is free to dance with the wind. Change faces, change places, change partners. Ta-ta! Oh, I'll see you now, young man. It's nice being out here in the evening on the porch. It's finally cooled off a bit. I used to come out here when I was a young girl and curl up on an old sofa we had and fall asleep watching the stars. Then one night, when I was settling down, Pa's hired hand Jeremiah come by on his way home. And he stopped like he wanted to talk. Fine evening, he said, and things like that. And I hardly knew him. He was somebody from town that Paul had hired to help out for the summer. Well, the reason I'm telling you this is Paul always said I'd never have a man on account of one leg is shorter than the other. I know it sounds mean, but I think he was just preparing me for my future. Anyway, Jeremiah was going on about the planets and the Milky Way, and by now he'd hitched himself up to the third step. Well, I come over and sit on the top step so I can see what he's pointing at in the sky, and then he scooched up to sit beside me. Well, he come by pretty regular during that summer. And I never met anyone who knew so much about the heavenly bodies as he did. But I'm still confused about the constellations. It's kind of like connect the dots, only there ain't enough dots. Well, but I admit I wasn't always paying that much attention to what he was saying. I just love listening to the music of his voice, so sweet and low. And sometimes he'd hum a tune and we'd dance. I wasn't any good at it, but we just danced real slow, and I just loved being in the circle of his arms. And if he was sure Paul wasn't looking, he'd kiss me. Then one night he said, "You know, Wandaloo, we could see the stars a lot better lying down than we can sitting here on the stoop." Well, I smiled at him, and he picked up the quilt, and we walked away from the house and away from the lights, clear down to the grassy spot by Whiskey Wash. That's the name of the pond. And he spread the blanket out, and we lay on it side by side and looked at the stars some more. Well, I wasn't so dumb as to think that stargazing was all he had in mind. And I wasn't thinking much anyway, because I was feeling things I'd never felt before. He was kissing me all over my mouth and my neck and in places I didn't know were meant for kissing. And before I knew it, he'd taken his pants off. And then he did the same for me. Well, it wasn't long before he had put his body on top of mine, but it was all the way on. I could hardly breathe. And finally, when I got out of the gasp, he raised up on his elbows, and that did improve the situation. Well, I guess he was giving me a minute to get my breath, because he was curling my hair around his fingers and looking at me so tenderly that when I met his eyes, I saw pure poetry. Well, then finally he did slip inside, and it hurt at first, but then it started to feel good. Well, I never will know how that sort of thing is supposed to turn out. Because just then Pa came upon us. He kicked Jeremiah in the leg, and he drove him off the land with a shotgun to his back. Pa never talked about Jeremiah after that night. And I'll never see Jeremiah again. But he left me with such good memories and feelings to flavor all the nights I lie alone. I'm not sorry it happened. I don't believe the Lord would have given us those feelings if we weren't meant to experience them. I don't want to die a virgin, return to sender, package unopened. Well, after Pa died, I found a letter addressed to me from Jeremiah. And it said right in it, "I love you, Wanda Sue." And it was written in ink. Well, of course, I couldn't answer it. It had been written some 40 years before. Well, I'm not one to go on in misery about what might have been, what could be, but I do like to keep the things that give me joy. Like this old quilt, where he lay his body with mine, and the letter that I keep under the pillow. His letter. It says, "I love you." I think I must be going. Allah! Bonsoir. I want to tell you something, but it is confidential. So please don't tell anyone, okay? It's about my mind. Sometimes my thoughts come quickly, and I'm astonished at their brilliance. But now, in my fall of life, often they curl up like smoke without focus, and they do not end in full stops, but wander off in ellipses. Blood has pinched off one by one. My brain at half-mast seems shriveled, limp. Where is the Viagra for this organ? If we thought our mind as important as our sex, then there would be a power pill to be taken half hour before needed, n'est-ce pas? Mais non. All men get it up without the control to rule it. They leave faithfuls for young infidels and may spring advances on young women. In that failing, they visit busy brothels, wage war to be first with Cain and Walker. They mount the prostitute. Oh, Un, deux, trois, and then die in action. Dried up wives, long out of service, are called back to active duty, some to combat. They protest and cry, but their cries go unheard because of the lusty grunts and growls of him. It's true, some rise to the call, salute the flag with jubilation, have a facelift, have an orgasm, attack atrophy with KY gel and yoga. If we had medication for the brain, perhaps there could be some balance. Wouldn't that be bone? And then, my mind enlarged with blood would once again rise, ready for intercourse. Social intercourse, of course.